How do you feel? You go like this anymore? Right, exactly.
We are going to get started in less than a minute, so if you would please take your seat. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Galvin Middle School. I am Dr. Jennifer Fisher-Mueller, Superintendent of the Canton Public Schools. On behalf of our district, I'm very pleased today to welcome Governor Charlie Baker, Lieutenant Governor Karyn Polito, Secretary of Education James Peyser, Commissioner of Elementary and Secondary Education Jeffrey Riley, Senator Walter Timilty, and Boston After School and Beyond President and Executive Director Chris Smith. We are also joined today by Canton School Committee Chair, Ms. Christiane Miranda, Vice Chair, Nicola Gallagher, Committee Member, Ms. Kendall O'Halloran, and Committee Member, Mr. Chuck Ray. I'd like also to recognize the Galvin Middle School Principal, Ms. Sarah Shannon, for hosting us. It's an understatement to say that this past year was a challenge for our students, their families, our administrators, faculty, and staff. Every individual has been affected differently by the pandemic, including our students. We are incredibly proud of their perseverance this year through the many changes that took place in our schools and affected every facet of their traditional school year, including the physical classrooms, schedules, extracurriculars, and most meaningfully, deep connections with teachers and fellow students. Though we are fortunate to have all of our pre-K to 12 students back to in-person learning, we know that our students have experienced many learning challenges, resulting in various academic and social-emotional stumbling blocks. It's our responsibility to continue to address these student needs through the end of the school year and into the summer. Each year, the Canton Public Schools is proud to offer a variety of summer programs. This year, we are developing new programs that will supplement and enhance our traditional offerings and will support the added needs of students and their families. These programs have been designed with a tiered approach and are based on the unique developmental needs of students across the grades. These opportunities will not only provide academic enrichment, but will devote time to creative experiences that promote social, emotional development, connectedness with peers, and offer flexibility to meet the diverse needs of students. These new summer learning programs will be supported by an after-school and out-of-school time grant. I would like to express my appreciation to Commissioner Riley and the Baker-Polito administration for making available the grant funding and recognizing the continued value of summer programs, which have become even more important following a historic and trying year. Our summer programming would not be possible without our Director of Teaching and Learning, Deborah Rooney, all of our principals, and of course, our wonderful educators. They have all shown incredible resilience this year, and we are grateful today and every day for their commitment to excellence and equity and their unwavering dedication to our students. In closing, I'd like to once again thank Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, Secretary Peyser, and Commissioner Riley for joining us this morning and for their continued support of our schools. And now I would like to introduce Governor Baker.
Thank you very much, Superintendent, and Senator Timilty, it's nice to see you, and to the 3 students who walked us through the building today, thank you very much for the guided tour and the observations that I'm sure you would never make to any of your teachers about how much you like and appreciate everything that goes on here. I also want to thank the Galvin Middle School for hosting one member of our administration for the third time. That would be Lieutenant Governor Karyn Polito. The work that's going on here is terrific, and I especially appreciated the chance to get a chance to talk to some of the kids about how much they like being able to see all of their classmates instead of just some of their classmates, which is the way it's worked off and on over the course of this very difficult year for so many. I think it's fair to say that we all know it's been a long and challenging year for teachers, administrators, parents, and students. And kids of all ages across the country and here in the Commonwealth have felt the impacts of dealing with a completely new way of learning and the impact in many respects that some of that isolation has had on their mental, social, and emotional well-being. We've been working really hard with our colleagues in the legislature and our colleagues in local government to do what we can to come up with strategies to help get kids back into the classrooms since last spring. And we've taken a number of steps over that time to help people make that happen. And I just want to say to all the folks here in Canton how much we appreciate the enthusiastic and comprehensive approach you've taken to making that happen and to getting it done. It starts, of course, with extensive safety guidance, which has clearly been the watchword here. More than $1 billion in COVID-related state and federal funding, rapid response and mobile testing capability, and a first-in-the-nation pooled testing program, which is funded not just through the end of this year, but through summer school for districts that choose to participate, which is currently serving 185 school districts in Massachusetts, including this one. And thanks so much for stepping up and participating in that program. And last month, obviously, with the help and support of the folks at DESE and Commissioner Riley, we began the process of getting all of our kids back into the classroom full-time. And by May 17th, it's our hope that all kids in K through 12 classes here in Massachusetts will be back fully in person. These efforts to bring students back to classrooms on a full-time basis wouldn't have been possible without the collaboration, imagination, and creativity of our administration and so many school departments, school committees, and school leaders across the Commonwealth. And now that people are heading toward what we might call the final turn before the end of the year and the summer break, I just want to make everybody aware of the fact that we are taking quite seriously the notion that this summer for many kids may be a little different than it's been in previous years, and that we've been working hard, again, with our colleagues in local government to come up with strategies to help school districts, help kids deal with some of the developmental loss that might have experienced this year during the pandemic. And while we obviously can't make up for all the days that have been lost or the classroom celebrations that have been missed, we can make up for some of the missed learning opportunities some students may have experienced over this past year. Studies continue to show that amid the school closures, many students did miss out on some fundamental issues around math and reading. And today we're announcing a full menu of options for schools to choose from to provide enhanced and expanded summer learning opportunities for students in all grades. Our administration is committing more than $70 million in funding for school districts to offer summer learning and recreational programs that can help kids grow academically and socially. And after a year of so much remote and hybrid learning, we think it's crucial to give people these learning opportunities and to give kids a chance to participate in them across Massachusetts. Under this plan, students at every grade level will have opportunities to take part in a mix of academic and recreational programs offered at schools, local community organizations, community colleges, and recreation sites. One of those opportunities will be acceleration academies, which have already proven in many parts of Massachusetts to be a powerful learning tool for kids in school districts across Massachusetts, and is something that Commissioner Riley, during his tenure both in Boston and in Lawrence, has some very direct experience with. Our administration will commit up to $25 million in grants for districts to operate acceleration academies using federal elementary and secondary school emergency response funding to make that happen. And we know that the experience here in Massachusetts, the targeted instruction from highly trained teachers and one-on-one and small groups can help students who are behind catch up academically. The academies will be much more than typical summer vacation learning camp. It'll be a multi-year program that the department anticipates will impact more than 50,000 students statewide each year. But the plan doesn't ask schools to focus merely on academics. Kids also need opportunities to play with their friends and participate in safe environment and enrichment activities. We're offering schools and community partners opportunities and funding to make these important activities happen this summer. And since last spring, as we all know, people have worked enormously hard to continuously adapt to the changes that come with this pandemic. And we think this opportunity in particular is another opportunity for all of us to work together to help give our kids some of what they may have lost over the course of this very difficult year. To the folks here in Canton, I just want to thank you again for giving us this chance to be with you today. And I especially want to say how much we appreciate the enthusiasm and the commitment and the creativity that you have all brought to what has been an enormously challenging year. And with that, I will turn it over to the Lieutenant Governor. Put my bulldog face mask back on.
Good morning, everyone. It is great to be here in Canton and really great to be back here at the Galvin Middle School today. This is an important day for our administration to spotlight the work that you've been doing here and what you're about to do this summer so that it serves as an inspiration and sort of an example to other communities and school districts to follow. Let me just first start by thanking the Superintendent Fuller as well as your administration here at the school and across your school district for your incredible work over the course of this past year. It has been a year marked with many challenges, uncertainty, and you've been able to adapt and figure your way through to get these kids back into school, a place that they love so much, and to help the students and families have a great experience during these most difficult times. So thank you all for your service, your sacrifices, and your perseverance. We really appreciate it all. I also want to acknowledge Senator Timilty. Obviously, you're up next on the budget. Make sure that these school districts continue to get the funding that they need to do their work. And I want to give a big shout out to Commissioner Riley, who doesn't always get a lot of thanks and appreciation, but an amazing leader during the course of this past year, trying to solve problems that have never had to be solved before. And the heart of every conversation we've had, his focus has been getting these kids back into school to have the experiences that are so important to them, their families, and to you. Thank you, Commissioner Riley, for your leadership. I know you're going to hear from Chris Smith as well, talk about how they have had success in after-school and summer programs. And you shared with me earlier this phrase about stealth learning, which I loved, because that's what you get here at the Galvin Middle School. I want to also acknowledge a friend of ours, Anisha Chakrabarti, who is one of yours. She shared with me earlier today that she gave her first speech on this stage when she was graduating from this school, and that speech inspired her service in government. And we are so pleased to have her talent as part of our communications team in the executive office. But that's what you've been able to do over the course of your adapting to many changes in how we educate our kids. I've had the last time visiting here in STEM Week in 2019. Now, I have to admit, coming into the school today, I didn't quite recognize it, because during STEM Week, you transformed every classroom, every corridor, every space that was within view into a learning mecca. And it was fun. So when we talk about stealth learning, you get that. You figure out how to reach kids where they are, make sure they get the access to the curriculum and the fundamentals, but they're learning stuff that they don't even know that they're learning. In STEM Week, you fully displayed your abilities there around encouraging kids to work as a team, collaborating, being respectful of different points of view and ideas. and really challenging their problem-solving abilities, starting in 6th grade and building on that through 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, setting up a foundation for them to be able to build on moving into your high school and the offerings that you have there. I understand that you are now being selected as one of 4 schools in the Commonwealth to take I2 Learning, which is usually a week-long event, and have it as a year-long opportunity for your school, and reaching further into the Project Lead the Way opportunities, always wanting to do more to bring STEM education into your school. So thank you for your commitment there and for serving as an inspiration to other school districts and showing them the how-to, helping educators access training programs and the how to adapt to experiential learning in your classrooms. And then, of course, building on that in your summer months ahead. So just a congratulations on receiving the $50,000 grant to incorporate more STEM learning, and also this summer taking advantage of this grant program to offer enriching programs over the course of the weeks when kids do want to have fun and they want to see their friends, and at the same time you'll be able to assess what gaps exist and close those gaps so they clearly hit the ground running, charging forward this next school year with additional learning that's very much needed as part of setting them up for a successful future. I understand you already have 180 kids signed up for the summer program, so that list is going to grow because you will make it a fun experience and a really, really important experience for our school districts across our Commonwealth. So just thank you. As a mother of 2 teenagers, I saw the challenges associated with virtual and remote learning, the social challenges, the emotional challenges, and the academic challenges. And I care deeply, not only for my 2 kids and their future, I care about your kids and the kids across this Commonwealth and making sure they have access to this opportunity. We close those achievement gaps. They have the skills that they need to be able to develop a pathway to the jobs and careers that are so special and so important in our economy in their future. So just keep doing what you're doing. We are big fans of yours, and we applaud your efforts today as we spotlight your continued successes. Keep going, congratulations, and thank you. It is now my pleasure to turn the program over to Secretary Peyser, and who we appreciate his strong leadership over the course of this year. He's been my partner in STEM education. We have a STEM summit next Thursday that's going to be fantastic, and we really appreciate all that you do to care for the kids of our Commonwealth. With that, Secretary Peyser.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you for your STEM partnership and STEM leadership. I was here with Lieutenant Governor in 2019, the last in-person STEM week that we had. We will have another one this year, I'm quite sure. And I just want to underline the amazing work that was being done in this school by students and educators, and the enthusiasm and engagement that they showed, and all of which hopefully is now returning to the daily life of students and teachers and families across Canton, and hopefully as well across the Commonwealth. I am a little jealous. I've only been to the Galvin twice, so I may sneak in next week just to get my 3rd visit, but it's great to be here. And as already been said, there's no doubt that this has been a challenging and, quite frankly, tough school year for students, educators, and families. And although teachers have often made heroic efforts to engage their students in meaningful and effective remote and hybrid learning, the reality is that in too many of these cases, educational progress has been slowed and sometimes slowed significantly. At one level, the logistics of online classes have tended to reduce the number of hours that children have available to actively be involved in their learning. Sometimes compounding the problem was an over-reliance on independent study, or as is sometimes called, asynchronous learning, which in some classes reduced teacher-student interactions even further. And for those students with inconsistent use of a working computer, uneven internet access, or inadequate home workspace, these challenges often meant they were effectively shut out of school for hours or even days at a time. And we know that in the process, far too many students missed far too many hours and days of school, and some even dropped out. Of course, learning loss is only part of the problem. For those students who have been away from their classrooms for most of the school year, the loss of personal, in-person interaction with their friends, with classmates and caring adults has weakened relationships, undermined social emotional development, and in some cases exacerbated issues of mental health. Bringing all students back into the classrooms with their peers and teachers is, of course, the first step towards recovery. But given how few weeks remain in the school year, it's clear that we will need a sustained effort, starting this summer, to offer as many children as possible extra opportunities for learning, as well as providing educators with tools and resources to accelerate learning during the regular school year and school day and school year. As important as this summer will be to jump-starting educational recovery, we must all embrace the reality that this will not be a one-and-done project, nor will it be a challenge that we can fully resolve even during the next school year. The legacy of COVID is likely to be felt for several years to come, both in terms of its impact on individual children and on our public education system as a whole. What we are announcing today is a set of initiatives to support and complement local efforts to ensure that children and families have a robust set of summer learning opportunities throughout the Commonwealth and across a range of settings and providers, from early education centers to municipal recreation departments to community-based organizations to camps and, of course, to schools and districts. Our goal is not simply to expand access to summer programs, but to ensure that those programs offer recreational and creative and educational experiences with a rich set of services to students with special needs or mental health challenges. Taken together, we are allocating over $70 million in state and federal funds for expanded and enriched summer programming for young children who are just entering school, all the way up to high school graduates who are preparing for college or to enter the workforce, with a special focus on those children and young adults most impacted by COVID. Among the newer expanded offerings are acceleration academies, which the governor has already talked about, focused on early literacy for younger children and math for middle and high schoolers, in-person district-run summer schools that include enrichment activities, along with additional supports and services related to mental health and other special needs, and Canton is leading the way in this area. Expanded partnerships with summer camps and community-based organizations that offer meaningful, standards-aligned educational services, and we're going to hear from Chris Smith in a minute to talk a little bit more about that. Enriched school readiness curriculum for children who are just entering school for the first time, evidence-based online math programs to accelerate learning for students from grades K through 8, and a hands-on math camp for gifted and talented students. Cohort-based college transition programs for the class of 2021, and access to tuition-free college courses for high school students currently enrolled in early college programs. And finally, opportunities for summer internships and other work-based learning experiences, including mass hire career counseling and training vouchers for this year's graduating seniors who are planning to enter the job market. If fully utilized, these targeted resources should help to provide tens of thousands of students across the Commonwealth with access to a stronger summer of learning and recreation and creativity and with other access to other support services to get them on track for a successful return to school this fall. As I said at the outset, this is not a one-and-done project. We have to sustain our focus at the state and the local level to accelerate student learning and address the lingering social and emotional issues that COVID has caused in order to help all of our children fully recover from this most challenging school year. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Chris Smith of Boston After School and Beyond.
Thanks, Secretary Peyser. I just want to say that I'm grateful for the governor's and legislature's investment in summer learning because it's about more than just recovering what's been lost. It's an investment in the future of children, not only their success in school, but also college, work, and life. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to share a little bit about how Boston has approached summer learning. As Lieutenant Governor Polito mentioned, we approach it in a stealth way. We use the entire community as a classroom in recognition that learning doesn't stop at school or at the school year. Learning happens everywhere. And in fact, young people spend 80% of their waking waking hours outside of school. So from the Boston Harbor Islands to the Blue Hills, including Camp Ponkapog right around the corner, and on college campuses, at workplaces, neighborhood nonprofits in between, young people are coming together with their teachers for a full day of learning and enrichment. And the Lieutenant Governor's point about stealth learning is critical. We start with enrichment because we know young people will show up for what's engaging and fun. And once they're there and are attending regularly, we can make sure learning happens. So if you visit, you'll see youth development staff, teachers, young people working together, and we're tapping the concentration, motivation, engagement, and fun that summer affords us the opportunity to do. And this summer, we're hoping to serve close to 20,000 students through 175 community-based programs and schools. And you'll see that teachers and students are embedded in these community locations, learning for a full day. It's 5 weeks, 150 hours, and we see that the cost per student is actually 2/3 that which it costs to educate a student during the school year. So it's an efficient investment that gets results. It's evident when you visit a program, but it's also evidence-based. Boston was part of a major national longitudinal study on summer learning, the largest of its kind, and it showed that even after one summer, there are statistically significant results in math. After 2 summers, high-attending students outperform their peers in math, ELA, and social-emotional skills. And the evidence shows that those advantages actually persist over several years. So it's an investment not just in helping young people do better in the next school years, but in subsequent school years. And similarly, last year, the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine recommended an investment in summer learning and employment because it has benefits not only for students in schools, but also for the health and safety of communities. So the governor's investment today is squarely in line with the research and 10 years of experience in Boston, and I can say that we're really eager to get back to work on summer learning, take advantage of the weather, parks, playgrounds, and an incredibly diverse array of programmatic approaches to engage young people. And we look forward to working with other cities and towns across the Commonwealth to share what we've learned so that we can make summer 2021 the best summer of all for young people. Thanks for having me today, and I'll turn it back to Governor Baker.
Questions?
Governor, how do you ensure that this is equitable among all school districts across the state? And does it have the nature of adding to the achievement gap that kids from these well-off communities like the learning off rural, others don't have the opportunity?
Well, I'm going to let Commissioner Riley speak to some of this because he's had firsthand experience with it in a number of urban school districts. But one of the main reasons for pursuing this initiative was specifically to try to create programming and options for many of those communities that have had a really hard time over the course of the past year with COVID and the dislocation and disruption that's come with it. I think in many ways, our view on this is that really great, Massachusetts has always had a terrific K through 12 system, but even within that system, there have always been differences between between performance among schools and student performance and all the rest. And this past year, in many ways, I think has made it harder for many of the districts that had some of the most challenging issues associated with learning, with access to technology, with kids' access to technology, home learning situations where it was possible for people to play in a remote space. And all of those issues, I think, require a significant response post-school year into the summer. 67% of the population, adult population, already fully vaccinated. It's likely going to be at some point that there's going to be an EUA from the FDA for kids over the age of 12. We have an opportunity here to make up some lost ground, and especially to make that lost ground up for kids from communities and school districts that have had the hardest time dealing with COVID in the first place. I actually view it more as a way to try to level the playing field a little bit as opposed to the opposite. But I might let Jeff speak to that.
Good morning, everyone. So the program and the dollars we're putting forth today are substantial, and they're available to everyone. We know that in some hard-hit communities, we really want to focus in those areas. And the good news is that many of these communities already have established partnerships with outside providers, like Chris talked about in Boston After School and Beyond. So whether in Boston it's Thompson Island or the zoo or Hale Reservation, a lot of the tracks have already been laid, and that's not just in Boston, but in other areas that have been hard hit by this. The money today allows us to expand on those programs and get even more kids in.
$70 million enough if you look at the menu for all districts statewide to take part in these?
Yeah, so the different programs are available across the state for everyone to apply for. And I just want to say again that this is going to be a multi-year program. This is not a one-and-done situation.
And the other thing to remember here about the financial piece is there's a lot of federal money coming in on both the state side, the municipal side, and the school side. Local communities in Massachusetts are going to get about, all in, I think it's $3 billion just on the municipal side, before you even get to the money that's coming through the ESSER program for education. And that is, we're still waiting for the federal guidance on that, but our expectation is, and we expect to get that sometime in the next 2 weeks or so, but our expectation is that local communities are going to be able to use this for initiatives and programming to deal with the negative impact of COVID. And let's face it, no one's going to dispute the fact that the negative impact of COVID on kids and on education and on schools has been profound. In addition to that, how much ESSER money is going to local communities?
$1.8 billion in the budget is still on, and there's still $700 million in the previous.
It's like, that was over $2 billion, right? 2.6 billion. So you take the 2.6, you add it to the 3, you're starting with quite a base on which to build, and this programming is going to go on top of that. And I think one of the things we're going to try to do here is make sure that we work with our colleagues in local government and in local communities to come up with strategies and programming that works not just this year, but as Jeff and Jim both said, next year. Some of this money we've got 2 or 3 years to spend that's coming from the federal level. And if we use it well, we should be able to deal with many of the issues in a pretty robust way that Steve raised about the concerns people have about some of the learning loss that's taken place in some of the hardest hit communities. Yeah.
Thank you for the question. What Canton needs are students to participate and outstanding teachers to also sign up and have the opportunity to really try creative, wonderful teaching experiences. The money has been tremendously helpful and gives us the opportunity to do things without the restrictions that we normally have during the regular school year. Yes, the question was about pooled testing. It's another resource that the state has provided. So free to us is the opportunity for students to for parents to actually sign a consent such that their student can be tested. And what it does is it gives us the opportunity to actually use testing as a surveillance measure. And we are challenged to actually roll it out full scale. But that's another area where we have gotten support from the state and our outstanding nurse team, led by Lauren Pouchard. So the testing program can now roll into the summer and will be another element of support to keep the summer program safe.
So, like many people in Massachusetts who tuned into the draft after the Bruins game, okay, Mac Jones still being on the board by the time the the Patriots got a chance to draft was, I think, for all of us a bit of a surprise. But the thing I admire the most about this selection and about the fit with the Patriots is Mac Jones has kind of the same story that Tom Brady had coming out of high school and college, and that story is constantly being underestimated and in many respects disrespected by many of the folks that he played football for when he was in high school and in college. And I think one of the things that we learned from Tom Brady over the years was there's nothing quite like somebody who always feels like they have something to prove. And Mac Jones is clearly that kind of a player, and his performance at Alabama was mind-boggling. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was something like 4,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, a 77% completion percentage, on a team that admittedly had 7 people who were selected in the first round yesterday. But I also love the fact that he played for Nick Saban, who's obviously a very similar kind of coach to Belichick in the first place. And I think the opportunity for Mac Jones and Cam Newton to work together and to figure out how to help each of them succeed and to help the team succeed is going to be great. I'm looking forward to the rest of the draft, too. Yeah. Say again? Well, that's part of the reason why this program is considered complementary to the federal money that's going to local communities and to local school districts. We expect that what's going to happen here is people will put those resources to work in a variety of different ways. And what we're hoping to do is to make these programs available in places where people don't think they have the option to put this kind of an acceleration academy or two into the mix with whatever else it is they're up to. But I think it's our hope that people recognize and understand that there is an opportunity here to both learn from each other about programming people are doing that seems to be working and programming that seems particularly effective with certain kinds of kids, and to recognize that we are going to have to put the shoulder to the wheel on a pretty regular basis over the next few years to try to make up for all the lost learning time and all the dislocation, and especially the social isolation that came with COVID. We both got a huge kick out of just watching the kids play out in the schoolyard before we came in, and that is like a rite of summer. It's just been part of the way we think about the fabric of youth and kids and growth, socially and emotionally forever, and they really haven't been able to do that for a very long time. And I think one of the things that I appreciate about the program we're talking about is it complements what other people are going to be doing, but it also brings this notion that recreational activity needs to be part of this into the mix as well. But I don't think this program is the only answer. There's a lot more going on here. That's a good question. Parents finding out about what their towns are up to and how they sign up? Why don't you go ahead and say it into the mic.
So school districts have already begun the process of putting out the information to families, so if they have not heard from their individual district, they should call the superintendents, but most of them have already put out information about opportunities for the summer. You know, I think schools and teachers in particular have done a good job of identifying kids that have been disengaged or only intermittently engaged and might need additional support. So certainly I think we're going to draw on lists from there, first and foremost. There's opportunity with data and testing that will come out at the beginning of the summer to also provide some direction that could help districts pick kids for summer as well. But it's kind of a both and, what educators have seen throughout the year, as well as the information we can glean from assessment.
Last question. Governor, can you talk about the math research that we're seeing today and message on keeping your guard up and people losing after the math?
I couldn't hear all of that.
The math restrictions
Yep.
that we're seeing today, can you just, any message today for people who maybe are letting their guard down a little bit or keeping after the math guidelines?
Well, I guess the way we think about this is we've tried to make most of the guidance we've put out there and most of the advisories we've put out there pretty consistent with what I would call the data on the ground. And we do have some good news in Massachusetts on vaccinations. We're #1 in the country in the percentage of our population that's been first dosed and fully dosed among all states that have more than 5 million people. And we're to the point now where 2/3 of our adult population has I think we were one of the only, if not the only states where 2/3 of our adult populations actually had at least one dose. And many of the populations that we worry most about, the people over the age of 75, the people over the age of 65, the folks with 2 comorbidities, the vast majority of those folks at this point are fully dosed here in the Commonwealth. And as those vaccinations have gone up, we've seen case counts go down and hospitalizations go down. And it's our hope and expectation that people will continue to get vaccinated. Keep in mind that there are 1,300,000 people in Massachusetts who've gotten a first dose. And the likelihood of getting a second dose in Massachusetts is, if you've gotten a first dose, is unbelievably high. I mean, we're north of 99% of the people in Massachusetts who get a first dose get a second dose. So that's almost a sure thing that over the next few weeks, another 1,300,000 are going to get fully vaccinated. And the more progress we make on that, honestly, the safer the Commonwealth becomes for everybody. And in that context, in that environment, our view was, and there's also been a bunch of research that's now been done that shows that indoors is a lot riskier than outdoors. And based on the research and where we are, we felt it was appropriate to basically say, if you can be outside and not be with a whole bunch of people in close quarters for a long period of time, you don't need to wear a mask. And I think what we're trying to do here is to make our guidance consistent with what we see as kind of the facts on the ground at this time in Massachusetts. We do encourage people to continue to get vaccinated. It's safe, it's effective, and it's proven. I mean, at this point, even in Massachusetts, you know, if you go back to before we started vaccinating people in late December, you know, we had thousands and thousands of cases among people over the age of 75. The population most likely, if they get COVID, to end up in the hospital, and the population most likely to pass away because of it. Once that population got to the point where about 70 to 80% of them were vaccinated, we only have a few hundred cases at this point of people over the age of 75, and the number of folks that end up in the hospital who are over that age has dropped dramatically to the point where a lot of the folks, and this is another reason to get vaccinated, most of the folks who are ending up in the hospital at this point in time are under the age of 60, which we have not seen at any point since the start of this pandemic. And that is very much a function of the fact that the vaccines work, and they've worked especially well on those folks in populations where the vast majority have gotten vaccinated, which in many cases are the older folks here in Massachusetts.
What challenges remain here in Massachusetts on the vaccination? What's the challenge?
Well, the first thing I would say is we've finally gotten to the point where there's actually a fairly significant number of appointments available. You know, there's a sense out there among a lot of people that unless you get up in the middle of the night and you're willing to work really hard to get an appointment, it's hard to get one. If you go on the state's website, or you go on CVS's website, or you go on Walgreens' website, for the first time in a really long time, you will be able to find appointments. And there are over 800 locations in Massachusetts where you can get vaccinated at this point in time. And while people are going to continue to do a lot of those second doses on those 1,300,000 people who've been first dosed, there are first dose appointments available, and I hope people sign up, because that in many respects is the most important thing. We need to maintain our momentum on that. I think the second thing is, as we continue to review the data on a county-by-county basis and across populations and look at it geographically, we'll probably make some decisions to try to put more of our resources on the vaccination front in those places where we think we have the greatest need. And we've started to do that. We've started to put pop-ups in certain communities that have been hard hit, where we want to give people an opportunity to get vaccinated in a place that's more convenient to them. There are pop-ups at grocery stores, community health centers, senior centers, senior housing locations, churches. I mean, the goal here will be to sort of spread the thing out, especially in some of those communities that have been hardest hit, to make it easier for people to get vaccinated, and then to chase the folks who are, unable to get to a site. So you're going to end up seeing a lot more work around with our local colleagues around vaccinating homebound folks and people who can't get out. And the goal here is literally just continue to work this until we get to the point where basically everybody who wanted to get a shot has got one and had access to one. We've been knocking on doors in many of the hardest hit communities at this point in multiple languages. We've knocked on thousands of doors. And I think in many ways, this is all part of just, you get through the big bolus of those who absolutely positively want to get vaccinated, which is why, and credit to Massachusetts that 2/3 of our adult population has had more than one dose, and that more than 99% of our people who get one get a second one. I mean, honestly, there's not another state in the country with numbers like that. And I think the goal here has to be make sure that we adjust as this becomes a more targeted effort, I guess is what I would say, as larger and larger percentages of the general population have been vaccinated.
I believe the Canton School Committee has been looking into possibilities for graduating seniors, what activities they can participate in. Do you have any thoughts on the possibility of large-scale vaccinations being made available to older teens? And related to that, when do you think students might be able to stop wearing masks?
I'm not going to speculate on when kids might be able to stop wearing masks, because that's going to be to some extent based on guidance we'll get from the CDC. And I'm sure for them, that's going to be a function of how well we do with some of these other issues over the course of the next few months and into the summer. With respect to the first part, one of the things, we don't know when there's going to be some change in eligibility for vaccinations for kids under the age of 16. We know that there's currently a review being done by the FDA that involves a clinical trial that took place with Peyser, just Peyser, not Moderna, not J&J, for kids over the age of 12. We expect at some point we'll hear from the FDA and what the results of that are. Pardon me? We got 800 sites. I'm sure in Massachusetts, the last time we looked at this, 90% of the population was within 5 miles of a place where you could get vaccinated. And that's not even counting the hospitals that are doing this. I do think you'll see more walk-ins, which I think for young people in particular might be a more effective way of getting them vaccinated, since they tend not to keep, let's just say they're not as rigorous about their schedule as some of the rest of us, and leave it at that. But I think we're going to continue to morph the delivery model as we have from the beginning to make it work for the populations that are left as we continue to work farther and farther into the community that remains that hasn't been vaccinated.
Thanks, everybody.
Going forward with, the usual year-end rituals, graduations, concerts, proms, what advice do you have for the students and also?
You guys know more about that, how to think about that than I do. Did you hear the question, Jeff?
Graduations, proms?
Yeah.
So we've We've put out guidance regarding graduation. We do anticipate being able to hold graduations. We're recommending they be outside. Students will be able to sit 3 feet apart. Everyone else needs to be 6 feet apart. And as a former superintendent, this is often done on a football field, so I think there's going to be space to be able to do it. It's going to be a much better program than it was last year, certainly. Proms, the medical professionals are more concerned about. We said the recommendation was not to do a prom, but if you had to do one, please wait till the very end of the year to do that. The doctors are just worried about the increased respiration and singing and dancing that comes in such a short space. So I think the rules that are in DESE right now for concerts still apply. There has been, and I have heard from the choral community about relaxing some of the singing guidance. The doctors just aren't there right now.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks again to the folks from Canton for having us here today.